In the previous video, we began to introduce Zhan Zhuang, and we talked about it as a kind of puzzle box that we want to solve. The puzzle box is our own body, what Wang Xiangzhai called rediscovering ourselves. And I set a series of puzzles that are quite easy to start with, that people can work on, and I hope people have managed to progress with those. I want in this video to set a few more puzzles, but these can be done alongside the normal training. We don't want to rush this. These things take time. What we might call psychokinetic training, like the integration of the mind with the body. That takes time and it needs space and it needs effort, but effort in a particular kind of way over a long period that's in dialectical integration, interaction with fight training. So there's no need to rush these things. We began by relaxing the leg muscles, and then we added in this kind of holding the ball posture where we can feel that there's some sensation there. And the puzzle that I set people, the final puzzle, was to integrate these two things so that the relaxation in the legs and the sensation in the arms are both being held in our mind together, that we're somehow holding our intention on two different parts of the body. And that's a little bit harder than it seems at first, and we'll come back to that at another point to discuss that. You might find your mind just shifting between one or the other. That also solves a puzzle and tells us something very interesting about the way the mind is trained to focus on individual parts of the body. And we need to understand that so we can start getting past it, so we can unpack it. But what I want to do now is set another puzzle for people who've managed to get this feeling where you can focus on both. You're relaxing your legs, and you've really got to think, like, am I tensing my legs? Like, the more you try and hold this feeling of pushing in and holding a ball, the more there's a tendency to kind of tense your legs as well. So that's not a particularly easy puzzle to solve on its own. But we want to expand that now from 2 points to 3 points. And we want to include this connecting area of the pelvic region. And we're going to do this very simply. And quite interestingly, I assure you, this is the direct teaching of Wang Xiangzhai, that the feeling we want next is like you want to pee, but you don't pee. And that's quite an interesting thing for Wang Xiangzhai to pick up on, I think, because by doing that, you immediately feel how much tension we use habitually to not pee, like to not pee ourselves. Overuse tension. So you can feel it straight away, like you just relax. And also a really interesting sensation that you can actually feel everything inside this area just relax a bit. And relax to that point where you think if you're relaxed anymore, you might pee yourself. It is, I assure you, it is the direct teaching of Wang Xiangzhai, or at least according to Wang Demo, this is how Wang Xiangzhai taught this idea. So now we have three sections: the arms, the quad, the pelvic area, and the legs. And what we're starting to build up here is something we call an intentional arc. So when we think about whole body connectivity, that's like a profoundly in-depth concept, far and way beyond, I think, the way most people talk about it. It's a profound concept, and we have to build our understanding of it step by step and stage by stage. And it's not helpful to think about it in terms of being like, well, we're just going to get this feeling of whole body interconnectivity. You've got to think about it more like, first of all, different nodes, different points that the intention connects to, like when we do this posture, the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulders. And Yao Zongzong talks about it in this way, like thinking about the way the limbs are interconnected and they begin to connect with the intention to form this sense of an arc. But if we put one hand down, we can still have that feeling of holding the ball. So it's nothing to do with like the shape of the overall posture. It's all to do with the way the feeling in the arm and the way the intention is connecting to that feeling. We can even do it, just put your hand on the table like that and just feel it in the wrist, and even relax the wrist and just feel it in the fingers. And what we're trying to do is connect all those points together to make this intentional arc. We can come back to that at another point. I talk much more about that idea in the intentional movement series. For now, we can just think like, well, we're starting to create something like an intentional arc with 3 different nodes. And they're all kind of doing a different thing. So we want these leg muscles to relax. We want to relax the quad area to the point where we feel like we're not overusing the muscles to stop us peeing ourselves. Almost like you want to pee. And then the feeling in the arms that you kind of hold in a ball. So holding those 3 feelings, those 3 sensations together at the same time. I think at this stage, that's probably not a difficult puzzle to solve, and I think probably most people were almost there. If you've been practicing the previous exercises, most people were probably almost there. But some other things might start happening there as well, or it might already have happened to you. So one quite important indicator that we're looking for in terms of relaxation is that the buttock muscles relax, that they give way. With so much tension in our backsides, it's unbelievable. The buttock muscles just unscrunched, like we talked about the knees unscrunching. So we're looking for that as a key indicator that we're relaxing this midsection area. And what we begin to do when we begin to release tension is to solve a really important puzzle, to begin to solve a really important puzzle. And this idea that Wang Xiangzhai talks about, that we're rediscovering our bodies. And here's one of the really Taoist things about this concept. By rediscovering our bodies, we're also rediscovering a lot about the society that we live in and how that constructs who we are and how we think about our bodies, and also how we think about what we should do to our bodies to somehow counteract the things that society is doing to our bodies. And we go back to society and we look at it through society's lens. So stresses, strains, tensions caused by social circumstances, and then going out into that society and thinking, well, it's beyond my conscious control. Like in many cases, we don't even recognize it at first as tension. We recognize the effects of tension, that we're getting cramps, that we're pulling muscles, that we're unable to use our bodies efficiently, that we're getting tired unnecessarily. It's like, why am I so tired? That tasks become difficult, that we're driving around and we're hurting ourselves in multiple different ways. And then those injuries that we get, then we try to treat them as well in the same way by somehow bullying that body part into submission, like it's some kind of separate entity that needs to be dominated, needs to be brought under the control of our will through, whether it's some kind of vigorous exercise, weightlifting, drugs, I don't know, whatever it is that society's selling you to force that body part to obey your will and relax. And the puzzle that we're beginning to solve is that it's already under your will. It's your will that does that. It's already your intent. It's already you. It's already totally under your control. That's where the tension is coming from. That is your that is your intent. And that in itself is an astonishing puzzle to solve, and to begin realizing that all this time you're thinking like, well, how do I, like it feels like if you've got let's say you've got tension in your thigh or something like that, and for most people, there's no sense whatsoever that your mind could have any control over that. Not like you can bend your knee like that. It's not like you can't control it in the same way. And then we begin to solve this puzzle that actually you can start to interconnect, dust off that link between your intent and a particular body part that you thought was, broadly speaking, out of any kind of control of your intent, and that actually you can. And that's what's happening when a muscle is relaxing. It's not just that you're holding a posture for a period of time and eventually it gives in. You've got to engage your intent. The issue is that it was your intent that was holding it in tension in the first place. Your intent was causing that tension, and it's your intent that lets go, not the muscle. And that's an astounding puzzle to begin solving. And not only that, it's the threshold to a whole other puzzle that begins to talk about, well, what actually is intent? What actually is E? And this is why I don't like to use too many Chinese words. I think it's unnecessary. I think if something is true, then it's true for everyone in all cultures, in all languages. Even if it's kinetic, psychokinetic to do with the mind and the body, doesn't need any terms that someone might not be familiar with. But as Wang Demo says, like this concept of yi is really important. It's really useful because it's not a singular thing. So we've got people who are like they've been diverted on the path. So they've started arguing about, well, do we mean intent or do we mean intention? And then you've got other people saying, no, when we say yi, we just mean like, our imagination, like that we would use in visualization or something like that. All of these people trying to narrow this concept down to a single thing. In many cases, writing books about, like, I've hit the jackpot, I've got it, I know what this is. In every case, really, no ability to link that into the practical expression of real martial arts ability. That's the key, that they're on the wrong path. Whereas the right path is something totally different. The right path is so much more interesting. The right path is that intention is like so much more complex than we understand. So we use this concept yi to think about, this is an unfolding puzzle. And what it's getting at is, what is mind? And that seems like everything within the Tao. It's such an incredibly simple thing, yet the implications are just breathtaking. What is mind? So just from a simple thing like realizing that you had subconscious, if we want to use that term subconscious, I don't think even that captures it. You had this, because subconscious favours the idea of consciousness and says like that it's superior to the subconscious. We're not trying to segregate different aspects of our yi and label them and put them in hierarchies. That's what society's done to our bodies. Separated different parts of our bodies, made us think about them in segregated, dissected forms. That's our whole quest of regaining whole body connectivity. We don't want to start doing the same thing with our mind. That's just that paradigm reproducing itself within our new knowledge. Our new knowledge is something wonderful. That mind itself is significantly more complex. It's a significantly bigger phenomenon in reality than even the concept mind talks about. And I'm not even getting like mystical about it or anything like that. In essence, I'm just talking about the nature of mind as not being disconnected from form. That these are actually, the mind floods, the intention floods the whole body, and the whole body is an expression of mind. And it's a profound concept on multiple different levels, but we don't need to go on that full journey just to start solving some puzzles to play with this effect. But that's what we begin. That's what we begin to unfold when we start feeling these big muscle groups relaxing. That was the intention all along. That was part of our conscious will all along, and that was being affected by social circumstances and stress and all this kind of thing. That all along was our will. It was our will interconnected with our body. So we've already done this. We've already mastered this ability to use mind to control the body. We just use it in a really negative way. And that's all getting a bit airy-fairy, I suppose. But what we want in practical terms, and I'm going to come back and talk about this another time, is to really develop a much higher level of ability to interconnect the will with the physical manifestation of that will. And to do that, we need a much higher grained sensation that mind is within body. And that's not like a mystical airy-fairy concept. It's a real physical thing that we can practice through exercises, and particularly through this process of puzzle solving with the body. And we can feel all those different effects and then bring them into actual, real, achievable martial arts practice. So if we've got that far and we've practiced those things, then we can start doing a few other things. But I want to do another exercise first, because it links into some of the stuff that I've been talking about. And this is keeping the feeling keeping the feeling that we've gained so far. But now we don't have to worry so much about holding the feeling in our legs and the feeling in our core region, because to do this exercise and hold that feeling all together is quite an advanced task, and we don't need to do it in order to be able to do this. So what we want to do is hold this posture, and we want to bring our intention very deliberately into our hands. And the first puzzle that we're solving straight away here is that our intention can be on different parts of our body, that it can just be in our hands. And think about how important that is in our overall concept, that we want to bring our intention into our whole body so that our whole body comes alive, that our whole body is intention. Before we get to that point, we have to understand that we've been trained by society to not do that, to put our intention only in certain parts of our body. And there's reasons for that we'll discuss in a moment. So we'll begin to put our intention on our hands. And remember that in the previous video I talked about the idea that Zhan Zhuang is reinterconnecting will with physical structure. And that's easier to do in the hands because it's the way that human beings mostly interact with the world is through their hands. So there's already a very strong sense of interconnection between our hands and our will. We solved that puzzle of understanding that. You know, we can do that very simply like that, but we want to think about another puzzle that's a little bit more difficult to grasp. So remember when we did this standing just with the legs and the leg muscles relaxed. And I said that actually this happens quite easily with the legs, that the leg muscles relax, that the big muscles in the leg just kind of give way. The intention lets go. And think about everything we've talked about so far in this video, that this isn't just something that's happening with the muscles. This is your intention letting go of that tension in the legs. It's not just the muscles relaxing. But remember, I also said that it's much harder to do that. It's much harder to get that feeling of muscles relaxing in the shoulders and upper body. That's why we do the relaxing in the legs first, and we do the holding the ball feeling in the hands first. And the question is why? Why? And we're just starting to understand this with this exercise. So from here, put your intention in your hands. And this is going to be very important later on. Remember, but it's already very important, by the way, because I've already talked about when people throw punches and they put their intention in their hand and they lead with their hand, which is quite an abstract concept. But the intention is in your hand rather than in your shoulder. So it's very important to be able to do this, to shift it from your hands. So put our intention in our hands. Now I want you to change and just really feel your wrists more. Like put your intention in your wrists. All I mean by that is you're shifting like the point that you're focusing on, so you feel that part of your body more. You become more aware of the sensations of that part of your body existing. It's very reassuring because for the most part we hardly even feel that we exist. Shift it into your wrists. Now shift it into your forearms. That also solves a really important puzzle because generally speaking, our intent is much more closely interlinked with joints because joints move, so the brain has to do more calculations to make joints move. But you can just as easily feel your intent in parts of the body that don't have joints, so that's also really important. If you can get this feeling, that's also a really important puzzle that you've solved. Now shift it into your elbows, and then bicep area is a little bit harder. Just take a little bit of a moment, feel the bicep area and the tricep area, shift your intention into that. And as you're doing that, notice that your intention has shifted away from your hands. So now you can start feeling it. So now you can play with this feeling, like shift your intention back into your hands. Now shift it back into your biceps. Now into your triceps. Now biceps and triceps. Then back into your hands, then into your wrists. You can play with these kind of exercises while you're doing your standing, by the way. So remember, what we do with standing is different at different stages. These are fantastic beginners exercises, and they also help to change the sense of time that you're holding this posture for ages and it feels like you're really tired. By having mental activity going on, it really aids the process. It helps you to stand for a bit longer. Now shift your intention into your shoulders and try and make them relax. And what you'll do is like the shoulders will relax just a little bit. They'll just relax a bit. They'll relax a bit. But you should feel the tension here. They relax to the point where you can feel the tension more, which is something. To get them to relax in the same way that the legs relaxed, for most people, is a significantly more difficult ask. Usually somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes of standing, for maybe even just like 3 or 4 days. Maybe even it happens straight away. First time you do it, these big leg muscles are very likely to relax. To get the shoulder muscles to go beyond that is going to take longer. For most people, it's going to take significantly longer. And you're going to kind of fool yourself that you are relaxed until you actually feel those muscles give way in the same way. Just like you thought your legs were relaxed until they gave way. And you also don't have this same... It solves another puzzle because you don't have the same level of data that your legs have, because your legs have to balance you. So your legs have to make these micro adjustments. So this is this process of the knee popping that gives way. That gives your brain really great data to help it understand how to relax. You don't have that when you do this. It's nowhere near the same. You don't fall over if your arms just move a little bit, or you over relax or something like that. You don't have that same. And you don't have this, like, the body, the nature of the body is swaying on the legs. So it's forcing the legs to feed all that data back into the intent. You don't have that. You don't have that with your arms. So that's one of the reasons why it takes a lot longer to get it this way. There's more data. But that tells you something very important about how important it is for your body to have data, that this is what you're doing with standing, giving your body that fine-grained data. Bodies are like the people that own them. You need, every so often, you need space and you need subtlety in order to grow. And we just don't do it. We don't give our bodies space and subtlety in order to grow. We do everything that I've talked about, trying to force your body to obey your will. You need space and you need subtlety in order to realise that your body is already under your will. It's just you're using it as a tyrant. So from here, shift your intention into your shoulders, and now we solved the puzzle. Why is it so much harder to do it this way, with your hands this way? And again, like everything in each one, it's contradictory, it's counterintuitive. It's because you already have such a higher level of interconnection between your arms and your will. It's that pre-extant link that's already superior, that's already much higher in your arms. That's why it's harder. And that's hard to grasp at first, but the reason is because you have that higher level of intent, and because you're a tyrant to your own body, you are using it more intensively in your arms. The tyrant is making your arms tense. And it can do it more in your arms because you have this higher interconnection of will and intention, will and physical form. That's very counterintuitive, and when you get that mystery solved, you have to feel it. You have to feel it physically. You won't quite feel that. It'll take ages. For most people, it'll take months before the muscles really just start to. You feel a bit of a shudder. They might shake. And when they shake, it's like the revolution is underway. To throw off the tyrant, as if your body could just throw off the tyrant, that indicates that the revolution has started and it's not far away, that you're going to give way and you're going to relax. And then you understand this mystery that, yeah, you have a much higher level of interconnection between will and physical form with your arms for most people, I know not everyone's got arms, I know that. For most people, and for that reason, your tyranny is that much stronger and it's that much harder to relax with your arms. It's mind-blowing, that's mind-blowing. Okay, well, we'll come back to those kind of scanning exercises another time, and we'll take them to higher level degrees. But for now, we want to just carry on with the exercises that we were looking at from relaxing. We've got this kind of three-part thing going on now. We're relaxing the quad area, we're relaxing these muscles here, and we've got the holding the ball thing here. If you can feel those three areas, then you're ready to start solving the next puzzle, which is to think about the top of your head and the soles of your feet as well at the same time. And you can change and play with the feeling, so you can imagine, like, you can just visualize feeling the top of your head. And you can visualize feeling your feet. And your head's an interesting one because you can start feeling like a bit tingly and sensitive in the head, and there's lots of cultures where that's associated with spirituality, which is quite interesting. We'll talk about another time maybe. Just anthropologically fascinating, but feeling actual sensation. So this is another sensation that might start happening, that when you start focusing an area on your body, that you start getting, you're not just aware of it, you start creating sensations like a little bit of a tingling or something like that. The head, for some reason, just seems much more sensitive to this sense of like getting like a bit of a tingle around it. I don't know why. My understanding is that bald people get that as well, so it's not just about hair or something like that. So now I'm visualizing these doing different things, thinking about balls of my feet, my head, and these two areas relaxing, and this area holding the ball. And if you're a little bit more advanced, by the way, there's this ongoing puzzle that you need to be working on, and that's intensifying this sensation of holding the ball. So getting it, the idea is like it's a paper ball, and then it's like a rubber ball, and then it's like an iron ball, that this gets like a very solid locked feeling. And that's not coincidental, as I'll talk about another time. This is related to when we use structural movement and bring up to the lock point. These are related phenomena that we're training together, that are helping each other. So feeling these three things, and then the two things, top of the head and bottom of the feet. I don't need to labour it, just practice that and try and get the feeling, because next we want to move on to something else, a different exercise based around this basic posture. So now we're going to do something different. So we've done everything, we're doing everything, and the legs are relaxed. The next thing we want to do is start bringing that feeling of that holding the ball, that resistance feeling. We want to start bringing that into the legs. So we're going to use a visualization for this, which is really, really useful. We just imagine there's a piece of wood or an iron bar. Wood's better, it just in your mind, it has a little bit more flexibility. There's a piece of wood between the legs like that, and we're just going to squeeze it. We're just going to squeeze it in. So you feel like you're engaging these muscles here, but you've got to be really, really careful. So we've done the exercise where we try and get the legs to relax. So wait till you get that feeling in your standing where you really feel that the legs have relaxed. Then you start to feel like you're pushing in, just like you have done with your arms. But in your legs, because they're massive muscle groups, so you can feel it like it's kind of really, it's gross data that you can feel really easily. You can feel your legs tense up as you try and get this feeling of squeezing in with your legs. So then you've got to go back to this cat and mouse game of relax the legs, relax. So you can feel that cat and mouse game much more easily, I think, in the legs like that. So as you squeeze in with the legs, get that feeling. Now just double check, relax the quad area. Use this idea of wanting to pee but not peeing. Now you'll see how useful it is, because as soon as you start pushing in with your legs, it creates tension all up the legs and all into the quad area. So we use that, just let go, and you'll feel it yourself inside you, like you'll feel the tensions come back and you can just let go, just like you want to pee, but you're not going to pee. And you've got to just keep double checking that. And that's quite an easy thing to, I think it's like, obviously Wang Xiangzhai did an enormous amount of research on this and thought about it a lot. And that process of like just wanting to, like you want to pee but you're not going to pee, the social control that's involved in making people not pee, just have a think about that, all that Freudian stuff about, potty training people, how deeply interconnected that is with, sociality, with social control over your physical body. It's quite a Freudian thing, isn't it? It's quite interesting. I hadn't thought about it in Freudian terms before, but it's a real indicator of this thing that Wang Xiangzhai is talking about, that rediscovering yourself is also like this Taoist rediscovery of how you were made to be by society, how social reality is constructed beyond that. So we've been trained all our lives. One of the first things we're trained to do, isn't it? Like trained to walk and talk, and we're trained to hold in our pee. So we've been doing this all our lives. So actually we've got a lot of interconnection between will and all those muscles that hold the pee in. So really importantly, there's this link between intention and those muscles that we can feel. So we can really feel it when we relax that. So we can keep coming back to squeezing in with the legs, and then at the same time, relax. And you'll feel it. And this is some of the stuff that's talked about in the old wushu manuals, feeling the anus relax, feeling these muscles relax, the buttock muscles relax. This isn't just about your own body, and that's wonderful. It's all about socialization from the earliest point. One of the earliest things where society took control over your body and started telling you what to do with it. That's really interesting. And we go back, relax. Get that relaxed feeling. Now squeezing in with the legs, squeezing in with the arms. Now we can feel like we're holding a ball. Now we feel like we're pushing that. Now try and feel like your quad area is relaxing to the P point, and you can also feel like the bottom of your feet. I'm getting a tingling feeling on the top of my head, but I think that's more to do with the fact that gas prices are so high I won't put the gas on and it's freezing in here. Starting to see mould actually. You can never win, can you? Not on my head. And you can play with that feeling. And this is when people talk about holding postures for a long time, that's not it. It's the feelings. It's the feelings that matter. It's just that some of these feelings won't come. You won't get the effects until you've held postures for a certain amount of time. Your body's got to have time. It's got to have space for these things to form within. But when you start getting these feelings, that also changes your perception of time. You start being able to hold postures for longer because you're not worried, you're not thinking about the tension, you're thinking about relaxation, you're thinking about solving these puzzles. And before you know it, a much longer period of time can have gone past while you're playing with this. So let's say you've got this feeling now, and you've solved this puzzle, and you feel like you're pushing in and you're relaxing your quad area. Now change, now push out with your knees. Keep holding the sense that you're holding the ball like this, you're holding it in like this. You were pushing in with your knees, now push out. And again, just put a different tension on the body. So again, relax the quad area and feel like you're pushing out, pushing in with your arms, pushing out with your knees. It's actually easier to do this with the legs first than with the arms, because we're going to do it with the arms next. It's easier to do it with the legs first. You just think the size of the limbs just gives you so much more gross data. Later on, when you're much more advanced, of course, then you have a much stronger sense of interconnectivity of will and body, and all kinds of tiny micro movements, fingers and everything can feel quite intense. This is a process. It's a process that takes time. So start with these big these big points that your conscious mind can feel more. So I'm pushing in with my arms, pushing out with my legs. As I'm doing that, I'm thinking I meant to say before, like, there's another area that was understood quite a lot by the Wushu masters in the past, where intention is conscious and subconscious, and how it can differ between conscious and subconscious control, and that's breathing. Breathing, well, we do it autonomously most of the time, but one of the most important things for the old Wushu masters was to bring breathing under conscious control. So you raise it up from that subliminal sense. I don't like subconscious. It's a very spatial. It makes us think it's something buried in the mind, but it's not. It's in the body. It's buried in the body. It's buried by the mind, the conscious mind. That by focusing on breathing, you start helping people solve this puzzle, that there are elements of the body that are under this kind of subliminal control that we don't normally notice, that we can actually bring under conscious control. It's one of the reasons why breathing is so important. And one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why it's not that important in Yiquan, because we've changed it to a more intensive process for solving the same puzzle. So I'm pushing in now with my arms and I'm pushing out with my legs. And if I was to actually do it, if I was to let the muscles go, it would be like that. Yeah, they would push out like that, but I'm not, I'm holding it. Now, get that, you've solved another puzzle. And these are all little micro puzzles, because we're going to solve a bigger puzzle that we call Hunyuan Li, or omnidirectional force. But we can't just leap to that. We've got to build it step by step into our training. So our next puzzle that we want to solve, all these little micro puzzles are gradually building up towards that. Maybe I'll talk about that in the next video that I do on isometric standing. See how far we get. So now we're going to change. Now you can stop focusing on everything else for a moment, because we're at a learning stage. We can keep isolating and then bring it back into integrated with the whole. So we relax everything, relax. And instead of pulling in this way, we want to push out. Just trigger the idea that we're pushing out. You can imagine there's like two trees there and you're pushing against them like that. You get this physical feeling of pushing. And try to hold that feeling. And if you like, then you can change. Now change back to pulling in. So it's like I'm triggering the movement. So if I was to do it, I'd do that. If I was to do that, I'd do that. But I'm not doing it. I'm just stopping it before the point of movement. And then I'm just checking that I'm relaxed, that I'm not using muscular. Because there is muscular. My arms would just flop down if the muscles, someone put a bullet through my head, my arms aren't just going to stay there. There is muscular use. We want it to the absolute minimal. Now I'm pushing out again. Now I want to shift my intention into this whole intentional arc, whole thing around here. So I want to feel my intention almost tingling around all this part of the limb here. And the hardest part about this is getting your intention on your back as part of you'll feel it in your arms, because our will is so strongly interconnected with our arms. But if you can get it in your arms, then start feeling it. Try to feel it in your back as well. And that's hard. If you can get the feeling in your back, actually there's a little bit of a secret to that as well. So you want to, as well as pushing out, you want to feel like you're pushing back. So you can experiment with that, just like leaning forward a little bit with your quad and pushing out, and then just lean back like literally a millimetre, like you feel like you lean back a millimetre and you're pushing back with your back as well. So you're not just pushing out, you're pushing back, and then stop and go back to just your arms. Now bring the back in, like you're pushing back. And as soon as you start feeling like you put your intention in, pushing back, these muscles here will start to tense up. And you've got to go back to the other exercise of just relaxing all this area. So for this posture, this is the last puzzle that we want to work on in this video. That you're pushing out, you feel this whole intentional arc, and then to feel it on your back, you feel like you're pushing back. Like you're pushing back from this hinge here, you're pushing back. So it's like you're encased in something. You can imagine like you're surrounded by trees all behind you and you're going to burst them like that. You push back. And then as you get that feeling, just shift your intention. Try and keep it in this area, but expand your intent, expand your interconnection of will and body into your thighs and just feel how tense they are, because just that process of pushing back like that immediately makes us overuse those muscles there. So you've got to get this feeling and relax these muscles. And what we're doing now is we're using everything that we've learned so far. Slipping a bit on the floor. Use everything that we've learned so far to apply to this new puzzle. So now I'm going to have to relax my legs. Oh, there you go. Feel my buttocks relax. Feel the thighs relax. And then really that's just about intensifying that feeling. So you've got a lot to play with there. So there's different variations of pushing in with the legs, pushing out. They can all be pushing in, they can all be pushing out. One can be pushing out, they can be doing that way. Don't worry about up and down yet. Just focus on getting this. If you give your body time and space to develop and intensify the feeling in this kind of basic training. I want to just pose one more puzzle for people to practice in this video, because I think it's quite an interesting one. And this is the idea of bending at the waist. And this is something to do if you're lying in bed, and I want you to visualise like when you do a sit-up. Just relax, and then, you know the feeling of when, it's quite a common feeling, like if you think about someone hurting themselves, or you think about hurting yourself, and you get a feeling like your stomach turns over, or you see someone on a video, you know I can never understand these videos where it became a thing in the UK for a bit, like videos of kids falling off swings and hurting themselves, everyone's laughing. I never found that funny, but you get like a feeling in your tummy, like a contraction in your tummy. Of course, where that comes from, it's like a vomit reflex. So we have that ability in our body. It's one of those things that the will does in fact control this reflex, even if we think we don't control it consciously. So just lying in bed, and just imagining like you're gonna do a sit-up, like you're gonna do a sit-up very fast like that. And if you, like when I do it, like my stomach contracts like that. I'd show you my six-pack, but I'd show you my one-pack, but have a go at that. I'm just trying to get that, like a feeling like that, like you're just gonna do a sit-up. Don't worry about what we need that for at the moment. Just try and get that feeling. Just see it as a puzzle to solve. Don't burden yourself with the. Okay, I'll give it away. Like it's part of the initial movement of Fa Li that we're going to train all over our body. A reaction very similar to that. But just give that a go and try and get that feeling. And that's enough. That's enough for this video. So have a work on those puzzles. Have a think about the things that I've said, because you have to sit with those ideas. They take some time. Don't worry about integrating it with the fight training. Just do what everyone's always done and think about it as health training first. Health, relaxation, health. What we want it for ultimately is quite abstract from where we are now. So there's no way of understanding that, because if you can't do it, you can't really understand it. So you've got to build your ability to do step by step, and that builds your understanding of what it's doing. It's not that it's too difficult to understand, it's just that it's physical knowledge. So it's like trying to put feelings into words. When you feel it, then you get it. So for now, just think about the health benefits and practice the other stuff, and then step by step it's all going to come together. And we're going to come back in a couple of videos and look at some more puzzles that we're going to solve. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks very much. One love. See you in the next one.